It was absolutely amazing, and I just wanted to quickly share this with you. I'm not really sure if you're into this, but guys, I need to tell you, whenever you do have the time to take a little bit of a vacation and just chill outdoors, do so. I've been enjoying the woods over the last, I'd say, 7 days now. I've just been outdoors and it was a bummer. Just sleeping outdoors in the woods, enjoying the wilderness, the animals out there, and just being there. It's great. It was awesome. Obviously, I've had my laptop with me, so I was doing a little bit of work, but yeah, it was good being outdoors. Trying to locate the headphones. All right, Ben is gonna be right back. That's awesome. All right, so just wanted to quickly share this with you. Today's session will be awesome. I bet so. I do have a little bit of wine next to me. Some good white wine. Some life quality here, and we do have a couple of topics, interesting topics, guys. So today's topics are we want to talk about OSMU, why OSMU is needed, and why even one Bitaxe matters. This is probably one of the most interesting questions that someone could ask you, and I'd say you need a prepared answer for this. Sure, you could go out there and slap those guys in the faces because they don't understand what we're doing here, but I'd say that's not appropriate. So let's talk about this and let's share our thoughts why we do think it's needed that we speak about Bitaxe and why everything that we do here matters. As well as the second topic that we do have here today, which is obviously the Bitaxe hacks. We do have a first company that is selling Bitaxe hacks officially. This is probably one smaller topic because we don't want to stick with specific companies here. We are just here for the development of everything, so don't expect us to dive specifically into one company or anything like that. We don't want to highlight anybody. We just want to speak about it, and obviously every single topic around this matters. We want to talk about what is the current state, how is the development, because we do have seen a couple of things. Some people might say, there might be a lack of, I'd say, informational flow from the development side, but things are brewing in the back end, and I'd say I'd happily invite Ben and Scott onto the stage if both of you are willing to come up here. I'd love to discuss with you the topic of why OSMU is here and why we matter, and specifically why one Bitaxe matters in every single household. Welcome, Scott.
Hey, how's it going?
Doing good. How about you? How was your day?
Pretty nice. It's starting to get warm here, and went on a skate this morning and got nice and hot actually. So, but yeah, it's all good. I like summertime.
Lovely. It must be 12 p.m. around your location, right?
Yeah, 1 p.m. But yeah,
1 p.m.
After hearing what you're saying, though, I'm like, man, maybe I need to go get out in the woods. That sounds pretty fantastic.
It was awesome. Literally, okay, so listen, I was driving car by 14 hours straight on the highway just to get to the northern part of Sweden. It was a bummer. It was so amazing. Literally, we saw a moose and a couple other animals, and most of them we just heard in the middle of the night. So like expect at 4 a.m. in the middle of the night, some animal screaming next to your tent. It's hilarious, but it was fun.
That's the pure experience, man.
Oh yeah, I definitely need to share a couple of pictures. We were cooking there. I mean, obviously we had our cars with us, and amazing fact about Sweden is, and this is something you can relate if you do live in Germany. So in the middle of the woods, in the middle of nowhere, the next grocery store was like 300 kilometers away, and we had fucking 5G internet connection in the middle of the woods. In some cities in Germany, you don't even have an internet connection. It's ridiculous.
Awesome. So, were you at a campground?
No, we were just driving off the road for a couple of miles, and then we just found a location where we thought it might be comfy to stay. It was next to a lake, and then we set up the camp location with the fire hole and everything around this lake. And then for the tents and stuff like this, we just got straight in the woods. A friend of mine had I'm not sure what this is called, but he was basically sleeping in the middle, in the air, like with a tarp or something like this. He was sleeping on, so he was actually not sleeping on the ground. I had a tent with me, but yeah, it was not really a camping location, just somewhere at a random position that we figured out on Google Maps previously.
I was curious because there's this legend, at least, that the command symbol on the Macintosh keyboard, sort of that clover-looking symbol that's on the command key, that apparently is the symbol for a campground in Sweden.
Oh, I didn't know that. Interesting.
It's a nerdy fun fact.
I mean, I don't use a Mac, so I can't relate. I'm sorry.
All right. Well, you got room to grow.
Let's see.
We should talk about OSMU. I had my last 2 weeks have been insane. Also traveling around North America to the various Bitcoin related events. I got to spend some time at Bitcoin Park in Nashville for their Mining May summit, or open house, I guess they call it. And they also had a BitDevs meetup the day before. Bitcoin Park is a fantastic spot if anyone is near Nashville, Tennessee, and wants to stop by. It's basically a Bitcoin space. They have like 2 big sort of commercial spaces, and they host events pretty much regularly. And there's just people who hang out there. It was so cool, like just being there. People just like, oh yeah, I'm in town for the day, and I came by, and I'm super into Bitcoin, and I'm working on this cool stuff. So that was really fun. We had a panel about mining with. It was kind of interesting. It was me and Econo Alchemist, he's a pleb miner, a home miner. He's the host. He's one of the hosts of Pod 256. So it was me and Econo on the panel, and then it was the CEO of Core Scientific, which is like the biggest Bitcoin miner to go bankrupt, and it was also the CEO of Grid Mining, which is they just went public. So it's like these 2 massive heads of mining companies, and then 2 pleb miners. But it was an interesting conversation, fun times. But then basically right after that, I got on a plane and went up to beautiful Montreal, Canada, for the Canadian Bitcoin convention or conference, and was on a panel there with Dwight from Pivotal Pleb and oh gosh, what do they call their heating company? It's Zach Baumsta's right hand man. They're working on Bitcoin mining heaters. So I was on a panel with him, with Dwight, Unbound Networks. That's what it's called. Sorry, I was with Dwight from Unbound Networks and Jonathan from Decentral, and it was really cool. We had a good conversation on stage about pleb mining and centralization of pools and good stuff like that. There was a big crowd, a lot of questions after. It was super fun, and of course the conference was awesome. I'd never been to Montreal before. That is a very cool city. And it was a cool venue, and there was just lots of, good Bitcoiners there.
How big is it in Canada, Montreal?
The event? It's in Canada. Yeah, it's in Montreal, Canada.
No, but how big was the actual event? How many people participated onto it?
I don't know the total number of people. It was at like an old theater, and they had kind of, so it wasn't like a large conference, but there was actually a fair number of, I guess, Bitcoin celebrities there. But it was small enough where you could actually like get to talk to people.
Oh, nice.
I'm guessing like under 1,000 people.
That's not too bad.
That's a total guess. I don't know for sure. It was super cool, and there was like some good events sort of after the conference days. I got to hang out and talk with Peter Todd. He's like a OG Bitcoin Core developer from way back in the day,
Oh,
and talk with him
nice.
for a long time about all sorts of stuff. So it was super cool to like just have people there who are, down for Bitcoin without a lot of hype. And I get a tour of Decentral's shop, which is up there in or near Montreal, which is an amazing place. He's got so much going on, all kinds of things happening over there. It was really cool to see everything he's working on, get a tour. And then I came back and got to go on Stefan Livera's podcast, and I was on Rabbit Hole Recap with Odell, and I was on Pod 256. So it has
Nice.
been a whirlwind of Bitcoin stuff the last 2 weeks.
You've been a little bit busy, right?
It's it's been so exciting. Like I feel like I've just been nonstop talking with cool Bitcoiners, and that's
That's
one of my
awesome.
favorite things to do. So it was great.
Awesome. I mean, I can't imagine how good this must be to just travel along and I don't know, like have these cool conversations with all these intelligent people. Man, I really need to get out of Germany, Europe here. Seems like the majority of the BTC stuff is happening overseas.
Well, I don't know. When I came to visit you, I thought that was pretty cool. That meetup there in Munich was, I thought that was
Um,
pretty cool.
it was
There's
good.
definitely interesting people there and stuff
I
going
mean,
on.
I'm trying my best to grow over here, and we do have lots of communities over here in Europe. We just need more. That's all that I feel.
Well, it's getting bigger. It's getting more exciting. I mean, I feel like these things is just going up and to the right.
Yeah, especially with a cool community called OSMU, right? I mean,
Yes.
these weirdos that are sitting there and developing some cool stuff. That's gonna be amazing, right?
Yes. There's all kinds of cool stuff going on here. And it was interesting while I was traveling, I was basically on the OSMU Discord the whole time, and there's just like rad stuff just nonstop happening. So maybe we should talk about some of that. Actually,
Oh yeah,
real
yeah.
quick, I will say that I got a chance to meet with a couple people that I've only met or only talked to before on OSMU chat, and so it was very cool to meet people in person. There's definitely a different dynamic that happens when you're talking with someone face to face versus chatting online. So it was really cool to like get to just like the passion comes through so much more when you're talking with someone in
Yeah,
person
right.
and see what they're really stoked on, which is everyone was very stoked on everything, which is awesome. I got to talk about this idea of a lot of this idea of small home miners are insignificant on their own, but combined they are significant, which is something I've been kind of working on my messaging a bit, mostly arguing with people on Twitter, but like I think it was well received. I think people are kind of, they start to understand, especially now that we're seeing mining centralization get a lot more coverage in the like at least Bitcoin news ecosystem, that mining is centralized and it is a reality. We can get lots and lots of small home miners out there to counteract this and all the benefits that go along with that. So I just wanted to say I got to talk with a bunch of people about that, and I got a lot of positive response. I think a lot of people are understand that or even are willing to kind of champion that
I think
on their own. Which is,
that's an awesome topic to dive right into our first section for today. So you've been like Leslie on a podcast on X and talking a little bit about OSMU and the BitX and why even one BitX matters. I mean, I've dived into it, or I listened a couple minutes into it, and most of the people just say, yeah, one BitX, it's not enough. It's worth nothing. How do you usually respond to such a response?
one, if you're just going by hash rate alone, a singular Bitaxe or any of the other miners here from OSMU, they're not significant, right? We have a nearly 600 exahash network hash rate. And so if we're talking about, just a couple terahash, or even the case of an older Bitaxe, like a half terahash, that is technically insignificant. But my favorite line now is, we're not just selling one. We're not going to get one of these out there. We're going to get a ton of them out there because the barrier to entry is so low.
I mean, technically speaking, we are currently sitting at 724 exahashes.
Oh, really? Oh my gosh, it's gone way up. Holy crap. I guess that's with the price going up. That
probably
happens. Okay, well, that is a really big number, and so it's a challenge, right? We have to get lots of miners out there. We have to get lots of home miners out there. But I would argue that any hash rate that is home miners, that is open source, that is fully decentralized, that's in the hands of many different individuals, it's better hash rate. It's better for Bitcoin. It's better for everything that Bitcoin is trying to achieve. So, that's the kind of hash rate we want to have out there. And I was having an interesting conversation the other day with Ben, and he had a really good point, which, maybe he should talk about it. But let's see, he requested to speak. There you go.
Hey,
Ben, do you want to talk about this idea of what might start to happen when we get more Bitaxes, home miners online?
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I was kind of thinking about kind of what that would look like in the future if we started getting, exahashes online, and kind of like what that would look like. And obviously it really depends on, what the current price of Bitcoin is, and like how much hash rate's online, what newest machines from Bitmain and doing all that. But my main thesis is when we start coming online, instead of the entire hash rate going up, we could actually start replacing some of that hash rate, because we'll be effectively pricing out some of those machines that are kind of just hanging in there by a thread. And so basically the amount of impact that we're going to have on the network may be higher than one might initially think. Because if you add 10, say, I think Scott was kind of using this example of 100 exahash for round numbers. If the network was 100 exahash and you add an exahash, you have a total of 110 exahash. But, and that's only like 9% increase, right? But if you actually replace the exahash, you become 10 of 90 exahash to equal 100, because 10 exahash has dropped off because they're no longer profitable. And that's like 11% increase. So you can kind of see where I'm going with that, where, we may have a bit larger impact on the network once, we take into consideration that a lot of these miners have to be, in the profit to maintain their machines, and we don't necessarily have to do that. We can mine forever.
I mean, one interesting fact about this is, or one interesting question I got lately was someone was asking me if I do think it would be possible to replace the current hash rate with the current total network hash rate with decentralized hash rate. And I straight away just fired out there and said, yeah, totally. It is possible. We don't need these centralized units. And in today's town hall, I'm trying to cover this topic and this question, how and why this could or should be possible, to give you guys an answer about this. But it is, in the long run, probably we will never be able to actually get off of these centralized units, because people are there for the profits. People are there to make money, make a buck out of it, and convert it to dirty fiat back again. But in the end, or just in theory, it would be possible to actually decentralize the network on its own completely. And
I think we're an interesting
yeah
we're an interesting place and time in Bitcoin where the subsidy is higher than the network fees. And if you think Bitcoin is going to live 100 or more years in the future, this is like not a majority of that time. So I like to think about things and frame things in the future where, the transaction fees are the primary primary income from miners, because that's what it's going to be for the majority
Yeah, right.
of Bitcoin's lifetime, assuming that this whole project works out. And that's definitely going to be interesting to see what happens when kind of like this free subsidy money is no longer kind of just being dropped on the miners, and they really have to be competitive for these transaction fees. I can
I
tell you one
mean,
thing is we're not going to see empty blocks anymore.
sure, but if you do compare the current subsidy and the current block distribution, we are not that far away from this turning point of that the subsidy is higher than what the block reward will be. I mean, I'd say how many block halvings do we need? Like 5 more? So that's just 20 years.
Right. Yeah. It's all dependent, obviously on like the current market in terms of how much block space is in
Sure.
demand. Because obviously, after we saw during the halving, we had this giant demand, and transaction fees outstripped the subsidy by an order of magnitude. So we're getting little previews of that, what that might look like.
I
But
mean, one
kind of the day to
interesting.
day, we're still about a tenth of what the subsidy is. I guess point one versus 3, right? So I guess that's more like 1/30th.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I mean,
But
one interesting fact here, or one interesting topic, I'd say, is what would be considered a significant impact on the contribution to the overall network hash rate. And this is literally not an easy answer that you could give. I mean, do you say like 0.1% is significant? Is like 10% significant? It's hard to answer. And I was trying to find this answer in my master thesis that I'm currently writing about the Bitaxe project. And I was a little bit conservative. I got into it with the amount of 0.1% being a significant impact on the overall network hash rate. And as I was writing this, we were sitting at like 690 exahashes. So I thought it might be a significant impact if we could distribute decentralized hash rate with only 0.69 exahash to the network. And just to throw out a couple of numbers, to achieve this amount of hash rate, we would need 1.38 million Bitaxe devices. I'm speaking about ultras. And to be honest,
yeah,
we are not that far away, especially if you do think about like all these factors around it. People are talking about consumption of power, people talking about infrastructure and stuff like this. As Scott previously mentioned multiple times in other podcasts as well, we don't need infrastructure for what we are distributing here. We are sitting at an average of 12 watts, which is the same as an LED bulb, a light bulb. And I mean, I bet a couple million people throw on a light bulb every day. So it's not that we could not achieve it. It's just a matter of time till we achieve this goal. And from there on, we just need to grow.
I think 1% is a significant impact. Now I'll give you kind of why I think that. From like a like a commercial miner perspective, it's not a lot. We're not going to be putting Foundry out of business with 1%. They probably won't even notice. But what's important there is if these large mining companies are in fact captured, and they're forced to comply with whatever like transaction filtering the government says that they need to comply with. If we have 1 exahash now, which is I think it's about 1%, which Scott said was like everyone, 1 block every 4 days. If we can get everyone mining their own templates or on their own nodes, whatever that with that 1 exahash, that's an excellent defense against these filters, because the government comes in and says you cannot send any Bitcoin to, I don't know, Edward Snowden, right? He's kind of like a state enemy. So his address is going to be filtered from these large pools. Well, with 1 exahash, we could effectively get these transactions to Snowden through 1 every 4 days, which is actually pretty performant in terms of final settlement systems. That's just as good, if not better, than an ACH payment, right? So by having that 1 exahash, it guarantees that we can still use the network without some sort of denial of service, as long as they don't try and reorg around the blocks. Now, if they do that, that's a whole nother problem. But that would be a really like a detrimental blow in terms of like the security and also the value of Bitcoin. Because if they do that, they're basically shooting themselves in the foot if they start reorging around blocks. But my point stands that if we get that 1%, it still can guarantee this kind of permissionless system in a reasonable amount of time. It doesn't need to be 10 minutes, to be effective.
Yeah, I mean, we're not that far away to actually achieve something like this. I mean, in my thesis currently, I do use the Bitaxe Ultra as the go-to solution, but we here in OSMU, we do have other ones. We have the QX, we have the 0xx, we have the Bitaxe Hex that everybody is thirsty of and is trying to get their hands on. And when we're speaking about all of this, like, you're so right. If we can achieve something that nobody can shut down, we do have a payment system for everybody, and it does not have any sort of a denial of service for anybody. It just allows you to use this system as it was intended to be used as.
Yeah, another thing I want to touch on too, which I don't think Scott touched on, was a few things. One is the Bitaxe is like our first kind of like swing at this, right? It is 1 million devices is like kind of like the worst case scenario. We've got some stuff coming down the pipe that I think we can effectively reduce the amount of devices we need out there, right? If we can improve the hash rate of these devices, you need less of them. And two, the Bitaxe and kind of just OSMU, these are like the reference designs, right? Someone could come in with like an idea about, like a Bitcoin water heater. That's a pretty common one. Use these kind of reference designs and make something that may sell in the millions or something like that. So the power of the Bitaxe isn't just the Bitaxe; it's all of the work that goes into it and what can be done with that. Not necessarily the Bitaxe itself.
I got to briefly chat with Heatbit, and they had some trouble rolling out their initial product, which was a space heater that was based on the S9. They just put an S9 inside of an enclosure, and kind of with their own Raspberry Pi control board, and that just didn't work out so well because it's pretty hacky. But for the most recent Heatbit, they actually used FutureBit chips and made their own miner, which is a big undertaking. And I know we talked to sorry, not FutureBit, Bitfury. Bitfury makes the ASICs for FutureBit, but Bitfury is a very small player in this game, and they're kind of the only one that might potentially sell you some chips, but they're kind of outdated. Anyways, it's a pain in the neck currently to like make your own purpose-built miner, and so I'm really hoping that that's what we can do with, like what Ben said, we can get these designs out there, and we can provide a starting spot for people to just go after all of these cool applications.
I mean, it's not ending there. It's like, as I do think, as long as we do stay in this theme of being a home heater device or a low power device being at like 10 to 100 watts, this is something that people are willing to have at home. Because these industrial miners, sure, they're good and you can use them and they have plenty of hash rate, but not everybody is willing to have a wiring unit next to their bed screaming all day long and then just making a couple bucks a day. It's a hard game, especially when we're talking about money. Money is the point where people fight, and this is in particular hard with what we're trying to achieve here. We are not only going there and trying to be this, oh, you do this for the greater good. We're trying to achieve this knowledge base to build upon new systems that people might think are useful in different scenarios. One example is, as I expressed as we started this town hall here, I've been in Sweden, and out of nowhere I met a German fellow over there who moved over to Sweden for, like, I think forever. And they do have an off-grid house. They bought this a couple of years ago, and they do have a solar system on their roof. And now what they do use a Bitcoin heater to heat up their solar panels during the winter time, because obviously plenty of snow, and if you can eliminate this snow, now you do have more power for your home. And if the power consumption is low enough that you do need to heat up those devices, you can't stop imagine what would be possible upon of this. Just one example of plenty other examples that we could establish with this knowledge base that we're creating here. Yeah.
Do you want to talk at all about the 402?
Yeah.
Let's
So
go.
we should get into some of the cool hardware projects that are, and actually software and firmware projects that are happening here at OSMU. So I guess we'll kick it off with the 402. I've got one in my hand right here. 402 is the next revision of the Bitaxe Supra, and I don't know, we just decided to just mix things up, I guess. But it's got the TPS 546D24 on it, which is the voltage regulator that MacFighter did a ton of work for, because that's the one that's in the hex. This is a cool voltage regulator. It's easier to solder, so as you working on building your own, we'll appreciate that. It's nice it has integrated MOSFETs, so you don't have to solder any FETs. It's also nice. It's a cost reduction, because while the voltage regulator itself is a little bit more expensive than the TPS 4035 that we used to use, it has voltage and current monitoring built in. So that means we get to get rid of the infamous INA 260 that's been on the Bitaxes since the beginning. We also get rid of the it's digitally adjustable over I2C. So we get to get rid of the DS4432U that's been on the Bitaxes since forever. So that's two big ICs that get to go away and replaced with this digital device that is really meant to be used like this. So 402 is coming along. I've got one here on my desk that I hand built before I left on this crazy whirlwind tour, and just yesterday I got it plugged in, and I was pleased to learn that it did not immediately catch on fire. In fact, it started working, which was cool. Because we had this different voltage regulator and it's a digitally adjustable voltage regulator, there's some firmware changes that need to happen. MacFighter's done a ton of work on this already for the Bitaxe Hex. I copied over a bunch of that, and that's kind of where I left it off last night. But it's promising. I think it's going to work great. So I'm hoping we can move forward with this on all the Bitaxes. And then I guess just a brief preview of what's to come is this voltage regulator has a higher current capacity than what we've used before. So obviously, I mean, it has a higher power rating too, because we can use it on the Bitaxe Hex, which has 6 chips. So maybe we'll get to have a Bitaxe with more than 1 and less than 6 chips on it coming up. No promises.
The other thing I want to point out
that's
too,
on the horizon.
Uh-huh.
I think you explicitly mentioned, but the new input voltage is 12 volts, which I think is pretty cool. I love 12 volt stuff out there that we could potentially use. In addition, it kind of unifies some of the hardware with the hex, which is going to be great for manufacturing to have kind of just one part that does it all. In addition, like you said, the reduction in discrete ICs is always a plus, and the overall bill of materials should be less, which means cheaper bit access for everyone. So that's awesome.
Yeah, good point. And I've become enamored with this idea of cheaper bit access lately, especially in talking with people. I think we need to figure out how to get the cost down on these things, just to further lower the barrier to entry. Right? This should be if you're even remotely interested in this thing, it should just be no big deal to pick one up and plug it in. So I would like to kind of focus going forward on cost reduction stuff.
Yeah, it's a big issue. I mean,
Awesome.
I face it myself. Lately I was starting to do some B2B business over here in Germany, selling a couple of Bitaxes to other bigger distributors, and I was just stoked about this, having someone producing for me Bitaxes below $100 per unit. And what I didn't calculate it into it is the taxes. Yeah, they basically knocked me off. Like I had BitX unit in my hands for below $100 per unit, and then taxes on top of it. Oh my goodness, this was a nightmare for me, to be honest. But it is what it is.
And the other thing too, as you kind of alluded, if we add one more chip, that pretty much doubles the value for not a lot of cost.
Yeah, it lowers the dollar per terahash, right?
Yeah, it just about cuts it in half. It's a really good value proposition.
It's just
Especially
so
if we can
amazing.
use essentially the same subsystem as we already have and get 2 chips on there. So we don't
Right,
need
and
to
then
fuss
on
with it a
top
little
of
bit more.
that, kind of alluding to what we were talking about earlier, it takes that million Bitaxe kind of threshold down to 500,000. That was just kind of like a snowballing thing.
Double
Oh yeah,
bonus.
that's amazing. I mean, obviously the network hash rate always rises, potentially. But yeah,
Yeah,
to
not always, not always. We'll see. I mean,
sometimes it stalls. That's true, but
it will stall. Yeah.
we'll see. I mean, maybe this is also a good time to make a little bit announcement of what I'm working on off the desk, and not really telling anybody here. Maybe someone in the audience might be interested in it. I mean, we do have so many cool projects in here, and there's just so much more room to grow for projects. And I had the idea of maybe doing something a little bit different and attacking bigger marketplaces, not really places, but bigger markets. So for those of you who might see in the next couple of months, I'd say something in here that's called Bitforge. This is something that will be distributed, which is a little bit bigger than a BitX. It has a little bit more terahash, 2-digit, something between like 30 to 50 terahash in a unit, and
Boom.
it will be completely open source, obviously, and it will be hopefully 100% assembled in Germany. I'm currently working on that, and to give you some sort of a glimpse of what it could potentially look like, imagine an old S9 enclosure. Use these old hashboards, use a big hammer, throw on these old hashboards, slide in these new beautiful thingies, use a Raspberry Pi as your control board, plug it in, and have a complete open source unit with like 800 to 1000 watts of power consumption and sitting between 30 to 50 terahash. That's what I'm working on. And yeah, I just think that we are getting now in a area where bigger partners on the market can no longer ignore us.
That's so awesome. This is like a dream come true to have people like, oh yeah, this is great. I'm just gonna make these new miners. They're gonna be open source, and they're gonna be, this is just something that people are working on now. This is so cool.
We're kind of getting it from all sides too. I guess I'll talk about kind of what I've been working on as well. It's kind of almost in the exact opposite direction. So some of you may notice there was a new channel called NerdNos a while ago. Still a work in progress, but essentially, the idea is to take all these nerd miners that we have. Currently, there's 40,000 plus in the public pool, and slap an ASIC on them. So for the cost of what hopefully will be the same or less than like a lottery ticket you can get at a gas station, you'll be able to add on this little ASIC to your nerd miner and go from kilohash to gigahash. So it won't require like any additional power sources or anything like that. It's just continued powered by USB, and yeah, should be cool. I got some prototypes kind of coming. Got to write a little firmware, but overall it's looking really good. So very excited about that.
I mean, you just pointed it out. As I always state in any talks that I'm trying to participate in, the Bitaxe is just the starting point. It was just this proof of concept that we're actually intelligent enough to use an ASIC chip from Bitmain and say this GFYO. Yeah.
So I think he's. It sounds like he has to leave. Bitmaker has been in the chat. There was a pretty exciting announcement just yesterday. Is they're shipping the Nerdax.
Oh yeah, amazing.
Which is a super cool project from Bitmaker to take and make essentially a Bitaxe where the brains of it and the display are just a nerd miner. So if you already have a nerd miner, you can slap it on there. And he's like totally taken this and run with it and ported the whole display library and made a really cool case and some very cool videos. And this thing is getting launched, and it's something I think you can get now. So
yeah, it has been launched today.
Yeah, you can get it.
I think it's already sold out.
There's a lot of nerd miners out there. Holy moly!
Yeah, like we got nerd miners plugging into Bitaxes. We got like Bitaxes plugging into nerd miners. We got like it's
it's not stopping this movement.
Multi-chip, multi-terahash, and then we got these little like couple of watt USB powered things. No longer are you stuck with the 3,000 watt 220 volt units. We now have a spectrum of just a few watts up to a few hundred. So that's such a cool thing to see.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Just talk about the NerdNOS, which is also a cool project. I just wanted to shout out the Nerdax because Bitmaker was in the chat.
Yeah, he's headlong on, but yeah, Ben, would you love to dive a little bit deeper into the NerdNOS?
It's really simple. It's using the chip out of the S17, the BM1397, kind of like the original Bitaxe was using. It's designed to run off of just the power that the USB can provide, so it's just a few watts. It plugs right into the back of a nerd miner. It's really small. It's only about the size of a nerd miner, so it's much smaller than like a full-size Bitaxe. It's also going to be really inexpensive. It's only a 2-layer PCB with just a handful of components on it, just for power regulation mostly.
And all these parts just on one side of the PCB, right?
Yeah, it's a one-sided. It should be really easy, fast, cheap to manufacture.
How many?
I'm literally hoping it's going to be like as cheap as a gas station lottery ticket.
How many parts in total?
So, I don't know off the top of my head, a couple dozen. Most of it just being, a few resistors, capacitors. It's got like a built-in, kind of like a cool little built-in fire regulator.
What will be the power source? Like a 5-volt USB cable?
Yeah, you can literally just plug in, like just continue using your USB cable for your nerd miner. It can be powered kind of one of two ways. One is you can, the nerd miner has the power pins on the back, or probably the other preferred way. It also does have a USB port on it, which you can just kind of unplug your nerd miner and plug it into the second PCB that plugs into the back.
Nice.
Right, that was that like tiny diode that the nerd miner had on it for its 5-volt power pins, right?
Yeah, it probably could run fine from the nerd miner, but yeah, maybe getting some stuff hot. So the preferred way would be to plug into the nerd NOS, which will then provide power to the nerd miner.
And what do you think? How far are you into the actual version number 1? I'd say.
It's pretty. I think the hardware is pretty close. There was a small mistake on the last revision. Prototypes made and updated, shipped to me, so I'll get those assembled, and then hopefully after those are assembled, it's just gonna be a matter of writing the firmware to talk to it. which shouldn't be too hard since we have all the firmware already from the Bitaxe. Just a matter of porting that to Nerd Miner and using C++ and the kind of like the
Arduino framework.
Arduino framework. Thank you. And kind of like the way they handle like UART stuff is different. It's not like a mountain to do. It's just busy work.
I mean, that sounds pretty promising.
And this is kind of an interesting idea too, because the power section on this won't be capable of running the 1397 chip all out, right? But the idea is that chip is so cheap now, it's like $1 or less, is that it still is worthwhile to essentially underclock it, right?
Yeah, that's right. Like these chips generally are more efficient, as they're underclocked. So and then like you said, they're so cheap. They're $1. It doesn't make sense to use really a more expensive chip only to underclock it more. So yeah.
We got some interesting questions from TDB3. Are users typically going the lottery route and solo mining, or are they using less dominant pools? To be honest, I don't know. We don't really keep tabs on all of what the miners are doing. It's just Stratum clients, so you can do whatever you want.
But
I personally think... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
So sorry for interrupting, but I'd say like we do have this. Well, I created this Reddit community a couple months ago, and people are starting to posting about what kind of pools they do use. We do have, at least with the super devices, I've seen plenty of people using the pool from Ocean and using the Lightning payouts. So it starts to getting a little bit more distributed all over. So I'd say the majority of the people that are using a Bitaxe device currently are using this for solo mining and are more on the lottery route and not really on any pool and regular payouts. I mean, you don't really get any regular payouts, especially if you don't use Lightning or Lightning enabled pools. You won't see a payout in the next years, I'd say, if you just have one Bitaxe. But people are playing around with it, so I'd say like 10% maybe do try it to use it on something like Ocean, and the other 90% are probably just solo mining.
Definitely, if you're going to do pooled mining with a low hash rate miner like this, you want to find one that has Lightning payouts with a low threshold. And the good news is, like in the last, I think it's like 2 months or so, we've seen 2 of them come out, Brains and Ocean. Brains, I don't know, there's a lot of drama. I wouldn't recommend using Brains, but Ocean has Lightning payouts. There's some drama surrounding Ocean, so you can dive into that quagmire if you want. But the issue you're going to run into with a pool that does not have Lightning payouts is that they're going to have a minimum withdrawal threshold, and it could take a long time to get to that with a small miner.
I did ask CK if he knew how many Bitaxes were on his pool, because a lot of people seem to prefer CK just because there's a lot of history there. And unfortunately, he did not know. He doesn't track user agent, so there's not really a good way to measure it other than anecdotal.
I mean, interesting fact here while you're talking about CK. I've read, I believe 2 days ago, that VKBit, another pool, has stopped supporting low difficulty shares. So when you do have like a Bitaxe or Nerd Miner, you'll no longer be able to mine on this pool.
Yes, he originally started out using public pool, but he was using the kind of like the SQLite version, which isn't really meant for kind of hosting a lot of miners. I'm not sure if he was having issues or something, but he for whatever reason decided to switch to CK. So he's effectively running CK pool.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that.
Me neither.
If Ben runs public pool, and public pool is fantastic, So if you're interested in lottery mining, you should definitely check out Public Pool. It goes to support this community as well. So highly recommend checking it out.
Yeah, there's no fees. In fact, the fees are kind of negative. There's like a affiliate reward sharing program. So I don't know why people are using other pools, 2% fees,
CK
whatever.
Pool is like
But
2%. That's ridiculous. That dude is actually, he's been solving a lot of blocks lately on CK Pool.
Oh, yeah.
And so Dr. Khan Clivius has been raking it in, man. Good for him.
yeah, I mean, I did the math, and that one big miner that was using him, he paid him like over 20 grand to use the pool. Well, they could have had that from themselves if they used public pool or like ran their own instance. I always encourage people to run their own instance. Like, I just make my server available like for fun, as like a courtesy. It's like I don't really run it as a business. It doesn't really cost a lot. So I recommend you run public pool on your own. But yeah, I don't really understand when people are using these 2-4% fee pools when there's free options available.
It was kind of wild. Let's see. The other question was, has anyone started talking with Block? Rumor has it they are developing an ASIC for mining.
If I'm not mistaken, we talked about this in Town Hall number 9, didn't we?
Okay. Well, we don't have to dig into it, but it's not just a rumor. They are definitely making their own ASIC, and I've been talking with them quite a bit. I think some other folks are. They are very supportive of this community, and I think we're very much aligned. So yeah, I look forward to working on that. I applied to get one of their MDKs, their mining development kits. And,
do you? Do you get
that?
it?
They said that they're going to start announcing who gets it starting in June.
Yeah.
And they're taking applications until July, I think. So
Okay.
I guess they're rolling it out. I talked to a couple of my homies over there, and I was like, hey, put in a good word for me. I really want one of these. And they seem to indicate that I should be able to get one. I don't know. We'll see. It'd be cool to dig into it because they the MDK, there's a lot. You can go to mining.build, that website, and read their whole blog, which talks all about this, which is fascinating read. But just real short is their first thing they're making is called the Mining Development Kit, MDK, and it's a sort of S19 form factor miner that's based on the Intel ASICs. So those are like over 30 watts per terahash, previous generation chips. But the cool thing is, they've designed their own S19 form factor hash board around it. They've designed their own control board and their own firmware to run on that. And that's all supposed to be open source. So that will be, super beneficial to dig into. And they're kind of pitching it as this is a precursor to building on their own ASICs, which they announced are in tape out. So they've already laid down a bunch of money into it, so I'm sure it's
going into 4 nanometers, if I'm not mistaken, right?
They said 3, actually.
3?
They've
oh
said
my
multiple
goodness.
times it's going to be
Even better.
3 nanometers. I guess we'll have to wait and see because that's a massive process, very expensive. So
I
shall see.
A good last couple of questions is he asked, what would you say you need to keep this going and make this thrive? Do you need hardware engineers, software engineers, all of the above? I mean, the answer is yes, all of the above. We need everybody that we could get in this community. This community just lives from this. We had plenty of people coming and going, and one of the biggest hurdle probably most of these open source communities or development thingies receive is that they do fail on the side of maintaining. And what I've seen so far from being over 1 year now with OSMU is we never had a lack of people maintaining anything. It is just about how many people are interested in this and how many people understand what we're trying to do here. So every single one that is in this community counts, and it's just lovely to have everybody in here.
100%.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, we just need more people to be interested. These make them. I have noticed kind of we are lacking on the kind of like the embedded firmware side of things. We got a lot of passionate hardware guys, and they need some software guys to write some firmware.
That's a really good point. We could definitely use some firmware pros, and there's some money out there to potentially support this. So if you've got firmware skills and are interested in working on open source mining, please get involved. Start digging in. Let me know. Happy to help onboard anyone who wants to throw some time and effort at that.
Yeah, and I think that's a good, excellent point to point out that OSMU has a little money now coming in from the manufacturers, so we can definitely support some developers working on some firmware. If that would interest you, it's for like supplementing your income. It's not a whole lot, but more helps. Every sat helps. There.
Yeah, we got to get better at hosting some more bounties in that regard. I think that has worked out pretty well for the couple that we've done, but we could do some firmware bounties. That might be a good way to rope people in, and then if they're into it, there's always more.
All right. So let's see. I mean, I am not seeing MacFighter in the audience here, sadly. Not sure. Scott, could you talk a little bit about the current progress of the Bitaxe hacks? I mean, the 303 version is working. Probably MacFighter will be here in the next town hall, hopefully, so we can ask him a couple of things about it. But what's your current take, if you do have any?
Well, so 302 is actually working. Ben made me one, and I've got it here on my desk, and it was working. There was a number of things that we identified. Well, we had to hack on it a bit to get it working, both firmware and hardware. So there was a bunch of changes that were discovered in 302 that became 303, and Ben made some 303s, and I know MacFighter's been testing on that, and there was a few. It's for the most part it's working, which is pretty awesome. But there's a couple small issues, and then several design for manufacture things, help for kind of debugging when things aren't working. This is like the tail end here of this development. I think it's very close. Well, I don't know. Wankla, you bought one, right?
No. So, okay, funny thing. As I said previously, or in the beginning of this town hall, I'm not in the mood to be specific to any particular manufacturer, and I'm not specifically here. I'm here for the community and not for my own good. But so Tiny Chip Hub, a Chinese company who does have a pretty good communication with PCBWay, they do have released the 303 version of the Bitaxe hacks, and they are selling them for like $3.99. And I just managed to get in contact with them, and they sent me over one unit. It should arrive today. I don't think so. It will. I mean, it's Saturday, 8 p.m. here, so probably will not. But yeah, okay, the postal service said today it's not possible, whatever. So I will receive one unit from them, and I will review this to give my honest review about this. So I didn't bought one. I got one from them for free to show to the community and stuff. We'll see how this turns out. Yeah, I just think it's needed to say that manufacturers are starting on working on this. I do know that Decentral, for example, is also working on this. And as soon as things are sorted out, Ben will probably be the biggest producer for them in the US, right?
Yeah, probably. I would just caution everyone. We haven't quite gotten that stamp of approval from like MacFighter, myself and Scott, everyone else to like say, okay, this is like the revision that we're gonna go with. So, just be cautious of that. And
yeah.
For example, we hadn't picked like a power plug, like standard until like a couple weeks ago. So just things like that.
A little bit of
So
manufacturing
it's
probably
coming
needs to
along.
be done.
It's coming along. This is a much bigger project than the Bitaxe, so it feels like there's a little bit more pressure to get it right. And with the original Bitaxes, especially with the first Bitaxes, it was like just fuck around and find out. Like we just made them, and there was like half a dozen total Bitaxe users, so it wasn't that big of a deal if it didn't work. Now there's a lot more people, a lot more eyes on it. We want to make sure that this thing works, and partly because it's got 6 chips on it, it's a lot more expensive, and so it's definitely a bummer if you lay down. We said it was $3.99 they were charging for those initial ones, right? You lay down a bunch of money and it doesn't work. That's going to upset people even more. So, if you want to fuck around and find out, you should definitely make one right now. Put it together. There's a bunch of brave souls in the Bitaxe Hex channel who are building them right now. So those guys are badass.
And it's just the minor majority of them. I mean, probably
I wouldn't say a bunch. There's maybe 2 or 3.
Yeah, probably most of you guys don't even know this, but here in Germany we do have a Telegram community about the Bitaxe project. And I don't know, probably like 50 people of them are already working on a Bitaxe Hex on their own. So it's just
50?
Yeah, at least 50.
50?
Yeah, 50,
oh my god!
At least. Yeah. It's insane.
Well, what are they finding out?
It's more of an advanced project. So
I mean, they're just trying to build it.
If you build it, if you build
really
it and you don't know how to fix it yourself, you're going to be up a creek because it's not an easy thing to diagnose remotely. It's a lot more involved. So.
I mean,
I saw MacFighter added.
Sorry, go ahead.
I saw MacFighter added last night. It was the ability from the ESP32 to independently measure all the voltage domains, which I think is going to be huge for people trying to build this thing.
Yeah, especially finding out how it works. And I mean, what I do know from the German community over here is the biggest issue that they do have is with the Hex, either it works or it doesn't. Like, you cannot solder just one ASIC on it and it will magically work. You need to put all of them on or none. And this is kind of a bummer for people that don't really have any soldering experience. I mean, if you do follow along a couple of these live streams that I did, I'm not a professional, but I'd say I have a little bit of experience in soldering, and man, I will never solder Bitaxe Hex. That's oh my goodness, no way.
Soldering these chips is so hard to do by hand, and now you have 6 of them. That just like exponentially increases the possibility of the whole thing not working.
Yeah, that's
for sure.
That's
like if you have like a say 80% chance of getting each chip right, the chances of you getting all 6 right is not super good. So just caution, experienced people only kind of thing. Double black diamond trail.
Double black diamond. But shout out to everyone who's just bombing down it and like just whatever. Like they're gonna figure it out. So yeah, that's cool. We haven't had anyone yet who's like pissed off because it's not working. So that's cool.
At least.
Maybe the Germans are. I don't know.
No, not really. I mean, the only thing that I do is from time to time looking into these Telegram groups and trying to figure out if anybody is writing anything that's wrong, and then I'm just correcting them. I'm not really into this Telegram thingy. It's way too overloaded for me. I love to stick to Discord. It's way more organized and way more clear to me what is where, and yeah.
I do think that the OSMU Discord is pretty badass.
It's the best community ever. I mean, in fact, I need to pin this banner, this OSMU banner, on my wall. It's way too big to always use this and keep this with me on all these events that I've been at. And most of these events, they don't even have the space to hang up such a big banner. So I probably hang this up above my desk or something like that. Whatever.
I have another project update.
Oh, tell us.
The BitCrane. So this is the USB Antminer control board. I actually went through and reworked the whole BOM so that you can get it made at JLC PCB, which is a pain in the ass because JLC PCB, they kind of like require you to use parts from LCSC, and that's like this goofy Chinese website. Anyways, got it all set up. Got the boards back. I ordered 5 of them, like assembled,
Mm-hmm.
They have a bad price on the USB serial adapter, so I actually didn't have them put that on. I was going to solder that chip on myself, and I got the crystal wrong, but just the other day I figured that out, swapped out the oscillator for, it's not the oscillator, it's the crystal for the right one, and it's working. So this is version 2.3 of
nice.
the BitCrane. And yeah, if anyone's interested in screwing around with that, again, this is another project of mine that like hardware seems to be working pretty good, but the
But to
firmware
be
is definitely
specific,
lacking.
but to be specific with the BitCrane, what kind of N minus does it actually work on? Like the S19 XP and beyond, right?
Well, the form factor is compatible with all S19s
Mm-hmm.
and S21 for that matter. It has the ability to use either fan connector. They started changing the fan connectors around the K Pro, the S19 K Pro. So technically, it could work with any S19 or S21. The thing that needs help is the firmware. So there's those hash boards, all the hash boards in the S19 series are, this is Bitmain, so they're all like totally different and weird. And there's a bunch of work that needs to be done to get it to support, to get the firmware to support those boards. So if this firmware is interesting because it runs on, Linux or whatever computer you want, because this is just a USB adapter. So if there's anyone who wants to screw around with writing a miner firmware in the language of your choice, this is a good way to screw with it. So the hardware is working. PMAX UW has done a bunch, and Johnny9 have done some work getting it to work with the S19K Pro, and
Yeah,
it's
running
wrote
on the
some software in
PyMiner.
Python.
Yeah.
Yeah, with PyMiner, it's like a modification on top of PyMiner. So you can start there and see how they do it if you want to mess with it. There's actually is Vapes in here? Vapes is not here. He started this project actually a long time ago called the Hash Hero, which is a open source Antminer tester. And there's another guy who, BitBang, who just showed up and is very interested in doing this. So there's been some progress over the last couple weeks in reverse engineering the protocol by which the control board talks to the PIC on J Pro and earlier S19s. So we don't have to get too into it, but if you're interested in this topic, check out the Hash Hero member projects channel, and I'm sure those guys could use some help. It's a fascinating thing. I think that it could be really useful for people who are doing heat reuse, stranded energy, to have full control over their Antminer.
Alrighty, awesome. All right, we're sitting at 1 hour and 7 minutes right now. Before we dive into the ending of today's town hall, we do have a question from Repag, who asked why doesn't have Bitaxe Hex 302 firmware on GitHub, such as Ultra and Super firmware?
There is a branch. We haven't released the firmware yet, but there is a Hex 302 and I think 303 firmware branch. So check that out.
Alrighty, do we have any questions from the audience or anything else? Or do you guys have anything that you want to add to today's town hall?
Yeah,
Dude, shout out
I'll
to,
add something. So I got some. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, sounds like you have something important.
I was just gonna say I have some exciting news. Next week, I will no longer be like moonlighting my OSMU participation, and I'll be full time. So look forward to spending more time around here.
Good for you, nice.
This is huge. I'm so excited for you and us.
So we'll have at least two people working full time on OSMU and related activities. Super stoked. Yeah, hopefully it'll mean I can like get more stuff done, because I always running out of time.
This is massive, man. Congratulations. That's a huge thing. And from such a talented and massive contributor to this space, yeah, I think we're all very stoked about this. We need like the sound of applause to play.
Wait, do we have a soundboard? No, we
Everyone's
don't.
cheering. The crowd is standing ovation. Congrats, man.
Yeah, that's good for you, really. I'm stoked.
Like, super stoked, super stoked to contribute more. Like I said, I always feel like I'm being like cut short, so I'll work on it to my heart's content.
So use public pool. Go to opensourceminer.com and buy some Bitaxes there. Support Ben in this activity. This endeavor, this massive, game-changing endeavor.
Alrighty, do you have anything else to add to end up this town hall, Scott? Because my wine bottle is half empty and it's getting better over here.
It's getting better over here. I don't find. Sorry, maybe I'm blind. All right, Repack, hit us up in the Bitaxe Hex channel. We'll get you sorted out there. That's all. I think that's all I've got for now. Oh, Sir
Alrighty.
Babe says he won't be able to make it.
Nah, I mean next time. There will be more town
Next
halls in the future, so expect us to be on this stage plenty more often in the future. I mean, it's bi-weekly if I'm not in the woods in Sweden.
Yeah, I mean, once again, I wanted to say a massive thanks to WantClue for putting this together, as well as all of your videos. If people don't know, if you go to the updates channel, you can see basically WantClue posting epic videos about Bitaxe and OSMU topics all the time. The guy's an animal. So go check out all those videos, like and subscribe. And yeah, thanks to you, man. Thanks for putting this together.
I appreciate it. Well, thank you for creating such a amazing project that I can literally say I love by my life.
Hell yeah.
All right, guys. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being in the audience and listening to those weirdos talking to you here. Thanks for everybody who's listening to this later on YouTube or any other podcast streaming platform, because the Bitaxe Town Hall will be by the next week on multiple new platforms such as Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Fountain FM, and so on. So things are getting greater and better each week. So thanks for being here. Thanks for having us, and see you the next time.